breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got a great podcast for you as in segment number 2, Justin Perri. He does great work over at Shot Quality Bets. Do not let that name deceive you, though, because he's also an ace when it comes to baseball. You may recall on this podcast last year he joined me quite a bit, and he is going to be joining me today. We're going to be taking a look at a relatively short slate of baseball on Thursday. A lot of these games have turned out to be rainouts, as we've already got, as I do this podcast, 4 games that are going to be postponed. So I'm going to ask him just how that might affect his handicap a little bit in terms of some of these games, if that causes them to go a little bit more heavy on the games that are out there on the board. Spoiler alert, the answer is going to be no. You don't want to be just betting more on select amount of games just because it's a smaller slate or anything like that. So we're going to be talking about why to not do that. We're also going to be just getting his thoughts on the first week of the season, some of the takeaways that he's had from a totals perspective. So we're going to have a great chat with Justin in segment number 2. In the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Thursday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at unit_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM. Maybe does not matter. As per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way, that's fine, an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Really did not get in any Twitter questions today, but had a fun day of baseball on Wednesday, and we got a few West Coast games from Tuesday to clean up. So let's take a look at those, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Dodgers ended Tuesday night a 5-2 winner over the Colorado Rockies with Erdemán Marquez giving up 4 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings, but 3 home runs. As for the Dodgers, Jason Hayward was able to get his second home run of the campaign. Will Smith got jiggy with it with his 3rd home run of the season, and Max Muncy went deep for his first as Julio Arias looked very good in this one. 6 scoreless innings. He did have Phil Bickford give up 2 runs in a third of an inning in the bullpen, but Evan Phillips was able to close the door with a pair of outs. Broussard Gratterall, Caleb Ferguson both supply a scoreless inning, and for the Colorado Rockies, Brad Hand, pair of outs out of the bullpen. Justin Lawrence a scoreless inning, and Pierce Johnson does allow a run in an inning, but was able to get 3 strikeouts along the way. You did see the Detroit Tigers be able to get it done on Tuesday by a count of 6-3. They would fall on Wednesday, but for the Detroit Tigers, it was all about Spencer Torkelson being able to get that home run, as I was talking about this a little bit on the show prior to signing off, and they were indeed able to get the job done in that one, as they were north of 240 underdogs in a lot of spots on that one. And then the Astros, they restore order on Wednesday, 8-2. They were able to take them down as Eduardo Rodriguez got shelled, giving up 4 runs in 4 2/3 innings, including a pair of homers. Going deep for the Houston Astros, Chas McCormick, his first home run of the season. You would also have Kyle Tucker get his 3rd home run of the season. Then a little bit later on in the game, Jeremy Pena was able to get his first home run of the season as he takes it Tyler Alexander deep. Alexander gives up 2 runs in 2 innings with that bomb. Garrett Hill gives up 2 runs, one of which was earned over the course of 1 1/3 innings. And for Houston, Christian Javier, a very good start. 1 run allowed in 6 innings, only 5 punch-outs, but still a relatively solid performance. Rafael Montero gives up a run in an inning, but Ryan Presley, along with Brian Abreu, they were both able to give the team a scoreless inning out of that bullpen. You saw the Cleveland Guardians fall to the Oakland A's to wrap up Tuesday by a count of 4-3. As for Cleveland, they had James Karinchak blow another one. Already 2 losses from this season, gives up a run in the 9th inning as Daniel De Los Santos, Trevor Stephen, they supplied scoreless innings. That Jane Bieber wasn't necessarily sharp in this one. 3 runs given up over the course of 6 innings. Main form of offense for Cleveland was Gabriel Arias being able to get his first home run of the season off of J.P. Sears. For Sears, he gives up 3 runs in 4 2/3 innings, but bullpen from there went to work. Trevor May has scoreless innings, Sam Mull, Danny Jimenez both combined for 2 scoreless innings, and Zach Jackson 1 1/3 inning scoreless. And then Cleveland, they had their bullpen implode once again, but they were able to rescue themselves with a 6-4 10 inning W. As for Cleveland, they left 12 men on base in this one, but they did just enough in the 10th inning to get it done, as Hunter Gaddis actually a really good start. 6 scoreless innings, gave up just 1 hit along the way, and then Nick Sandlin gives up 1 run in 1 2/3 innings. That was a solo home run, and the guy that really lit this thing on fire, Tim Herron, 3 runs surrendered while getting one out, including home run, but Eli Morgan and Emmanuel Clase, they provide scoreless 9th and 10th innings. As for Oakland going deep, Jesus Aguilar, first home run season. Then you got home run number 1 of the season for young first baseman Ryan Noda. For the Oakland A's, you had Kyle Mueller give a relatively okay start. 2 runs surrendered in 5 2/3 innings. Got out of a lot of big-time chances. Adrian Martinez gives up 2 runs in 2 innings. Domingo Acevedo and out of the bullpen, Jurcic Familia. He did not blow this one. He was able to give a scoreless inning, but Zach Jackson, 2 runs, 1 of which was earned. Pitching on back-to-back days was not necessarily his friend. The Seattle Mariners completely took it to the Angels on Tuesday before falling to Shohei Ohtani on Wednesday. 11-2 was the final on Tuesday, with Jose Suarez getting completely smoked. 7 runs, 6 of which were earned. Give it up in 4 1/3 innings, and Jaime Barria gives up 4 runs in 3 2/3 innings as they gave up a combined 4 home runs. Going deep for Seattle, A.J. Pollock, his first 2 home runs of the season. He was able to get Barria twice, and then the 2 home runs that Suarez came up. The 2 home runs that Suarez gave up came to Teoscar Hernandez. His first 2 as a Seattle Mariner, as Luis Castillo, 5 2/3 innings scoreless. Matt Brash was able to get in out of the bullpen. You did have Paul Sewald give up 2 runs in an inning, but Gabe Spear and Trevor Gott, they got him with a scoreless inning. And then you saw the Seattle Mariners fall on Wednesday by a count of 4-3, as Shohei Ohtani didn't necessarily have his A-plus stuff. He goes 6 innings, though, 111 pitches, punches out 8, had 4 walks, but was able to evade danger with giving up just 1 run. From there, Jimmy Harrigan, Matt Moore, they both give up a run out of the bullpen as they combined for 2 innings, giving up 2 runs between the 2 of them, but Jose Quiada was able to get the save with a scoreless inning, and the big hit in this one came from Mr. O'Hope, as Logan O'Hope was able to get his 2nd home run of the season, as that comes off of Chris Flexen, who gave up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. Matt Brash, Penn Murphy, Trevor Gott, I'll give you a scoreless inning, but Diego Castillo, he was really the weak link of the Seattle Mariners bullpen last year. 2 runs surrendered in 2/3 of an inning before Andres Munoz had to come in and really clean up his mess. The Chicago White Sox, they made a mess for the San Francisco Giants. 7-3, they were able to take them down on Wednesday as Logan Webb gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings. From there, Sean Ejalay was coming on for 1 2/3 innings and gave up 3 unearned runs, doomed by a bad Brandon Crawford fielding error. He did have Scott Alexander be able to get in out of the bullpen, and a scoreless inning out of Tyler Rogers, not to be confused with his brother Taylor, but for the Giants as well. 11 men left on base. J.D. Davis was the main form of offense. He did take Dylan Cease deep in the 2nd inning for a 2nd home run season, but that's all Dylan Cease will give up. Now, Cease only goes 5 innings in this one because he walked 5, jacked up his pitch count, but just gives up that home run. From there, bullpen, other than Joe Kelly, who gives up 2 runs in an inning, and Joe Kelly, not so trustworthy, was relatively solid. Jake Diekman, Jimmy Lambert both give a scoreless inning, and Ronaldo Lopez and Aaron Bummer, no Bummer there, they were able to combine for a scoreless inning. The Walker Texas Rangers were able to get it done against the Baltimore Orioles by a count of 5-2, as it was the debut of Grayson Rodriguez. Not great, not terrible. He punched out 5 in 5 innings, giving up 2 runs, was starting in his home state of Texas. From there, Austin Voth, he gives up 3 runs and 1 1/3 innings, and he was really who you pin this loss on, as Josh Young was able to get his 2nd home run season off of him. From there, you had a pair of outs out of the bullpen from Keegan Aiken. Brian Baker was able to supply a scoreless inning, but Jacob deGrom looked much more like the Jacob deGrom of old, giving up 2 runs, 1 of which was earned in 6 innings, punched out 11, was hurt by a Marcus Semien fielding error, but from there, Jonathan Hernandez, Will Smith, they get jiggy with it. A pair of scoreless innings between the 2 of them, and Jose Leclerc able to close it out with a scoreless inning of his own. The Atlanta Braves continued their hot start to the season, 5-2. They're able to take down the St. Louis Cardinals as Matt Olson, 3rd home run season. That comes off of Miles Michaelis, who gives up 5 runs in 6 innings. He's off to a rough start. Becky not in a scoreless inning. Chris Strain, 2 scoreless innings. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, Jordan Walker gets his first career home run as Bryce Elder. 6 scoreless innings. From there, you did have that home run surrendered by Michael Tonkin, who gives up that sole home run over the course of an inning. You did have Kyle McHugh give up a run in an inning as well, but Jesse Chavez, Dylan Lee, they combined for a scoreless inning, and Young Elder looked very good in this performance. So that is big for the Atlanta Braves moving forward. This was nice for the New York Yankees. They take down the Philadelphia Phillies by a count of 4-2. As for the Phillies, Aaron Nola wasn't super, but he wasn't super awful either. Gives up 3 runs over the course of 6 innings. Gregory Soto does not look good in a Phillies uniform. He gives up a home run over the course of his inning of work as going deep. You had Jose Trevino get his first home run season, and Sir Anthony Dominguez did provide a scoreless inning before the Yankees Garrett Cole, another good start. 8 punch-outs, 1 run surrendered in 6 1/3 innings. Jonathan Loaisiga does give up a home run in 1 2/3 innings. As Kyle Schwarber, his second home run in 2 days, and then Clay Holmes was able to come on for a scoreless inning. He was able not to save. For the New York Mets, they are now below 500 as the Milwaukee Brewers get it done by a count of 7-6 as Garrett Mitchell was able to get the walk-off home run for the Milwaukee Brewers as both starters got destroyed in this one. David Peterson, bad day for the Peterson family. He gives up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings, including a home run, going deep for the Milwaukee Brewers off of him. One of their young outfielders, Joey Weimer, his first of the season, and for Mitchell, that was his third. That came off of Adam Ottavino. That was the walk-off winner as Adam Ottavino gives that up without giving up a single out. Bullpen before that was doing a solid job. Drew Smith did give up a run in an inning, but John Curtis with 2 S's, 2 scoreless innings. David Robertson, a scoreless inning, and Pete Alonso was able to crank Corbin Burns deep twice. Second and third home runs this season for Burns, gives up 6 runs in 4 1/3 innings, but bullpen for the Brewers did their part. Devin Williams, Matt Bush, Peter Strzelski, I'll give you a scoreless inning, and Hobie Milner, he was able to get 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Doc Shock, surprise, surprise, the turkey tosser himself got lit up once again. The Tampa Bay Rays take it to the Washington Nationals by a count of 7-2. For Tampa Bay, you did have a pair of home runs as Harold Ramirez gets his first of the season off of turkey tosser, and then Wander Franco was able to get his second home run season. If you're wondering why Patrick Corbin is known as the turkey tosser, he gets carved up every single time he hits a mound. 6 runs surrendered over the course of 6 innings. Why this guy gets innings, I have no idea. Probably just due to the fact that he's due so much money. Anthony Banda, scoreless inning. Thaddeus Ward gives up 1 run over the course of 2 innings. So for Washington, not a lot of offense for them as Shane McClanahan gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. Ryan Thompson, Garrett Clevenger, Colin Pooch from there all supply a scoreless inning. So for those of you guys that took the run line of the Washington Nationals, no fear there. No fear if you took the Miami Marlins as well. 5-2, they were able to take down the Minnesota Twins. Pablo Lopez in his first start coming back to Miami. A very good start. He allowed 1 solo run over the course of 7 innings. He did his part, going deep for the Miami Marlins. Jorge Soler, his second home run of the campaign, but then he would take Caleb Thielbar deep for his third as the Twins' bullpen was not great. Griffin Jacks gets jacked up, gets 1 out, gives up 2 runs, and Thielbar gives up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, giving up that home run. And for the Minnesota Twins, not a ton doing off of Jesus Luzardo. Luzardo punches out 10, gives up a 1 run in 7 innings. Dylan Floro goes for a scoreless inning, and then you did have A.J. Puck give up a run and an inning, but team is able to get it done. And the Boston Red Sox get swept by the poopy Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Pirates are 4-2, 4-1. They take down Boston as Carlos Santana was able to get his first home run season off of Corey Kluber. For Kluber, gives up just that home run over the course of 5 innings. He wasn't bad. Caleb Bort was bad. He gives up 2 runs in an inning. John Schreiber gives up a run in an inning before Richard Blyer, Zach Kelly both supply a scoreless inning. Not the world's greatest weather out there in Boston, and the Red Sox, they could not get to Mitch Keller. Keller gives up 1 run over the course of 7 innings. From there, Dwayne Underwood Jr., a couple of the Rob Zinarski, both are able to supply a scoreless inning. And you also did see the Toronto Blue Jays take down the Kansas City Royals. This is going on as I do this right now. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, Alek Manoah was able to supply a very good scoreless start. Meanwhile, for the Kansas City Royals, Zach Greinke do a solid job. He gave up 1 run over the course of 6 innings. So if you're taking a look at Major League Baseball right now, we still have seen quite a few overs thus far this season. 49 overs, 38 unders, and I believe we now have 2 pushes, if math serves me correctly, but we certainly have been seeing a binge of overs thus far. And the favorites, they've been doing quite well. They are currently 54-37 straight up, a little bit over 49% with that regard. And most of these favorites, they have been covering on the run line, as 46 of them have been able to get home on that run line. So we've seen just 8 games where the favorite has won by just 1 run, and that is something that I'm going to be gauging all season long. So I will be keeping abreast of all the trends that we're seeing in Major League Baseball on this podcast. And coming up next, we are going to be joined by one of our good friends, Justin Perri over at Chalk Quality Bets. We're going to talk with him about what he's noticed from the first week of the season. We're also going to be chatting with him about how to gauge some of these games involving weather and what he likes for Thursday right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Are you ready to become a winning sports bettor? Schedule a call with SBIA to find out how their service can make you a long-term winning player. They've developed an innovative algorithm that maximizes units return, and they are so confident in their system that they offer a money-back guarantee. Sign up by October 31st and get their NBA package at no cost until they reach 10 net units. They treat sports betting like a business. So if you want to learn how to make your sports betting dreams a reality, visit them at SBIA1.com and check them out on social media at SBIA Sports.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man as Justin Perri. He does great work over at Chalk Quality and Chalk Quality Bets. Do not let the name confuse you, because while this man does an amazing job with college basketball, those of you guys that listened to his podcast last year know that this man is an ace when it comes to the ball diamond as well. Does a great job being able to gauge a whole wide variety of different things. He does an amazing job being able to gauge this great game that we all know and love. And to be able to follow Justin on Twitter, that is at Justin Perri, the number 8 altogether. Last name is spelled Perri. And Justin, always great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Greg, it is always fun to be back. It is officially baseball season. It's April. We're into the first real week of the season. Very exciting to see some of these pitchers getting back to it, trying to evaluate talent based off what we saw last year. And, I think this is the time of the year where you have the best opportunities to have edges against projections from the book. So this is the best time of the year for baseball.
It certainly is the best time of year for baseball. What have you made out of the first week of the year? Because as we know, there have been a lot of rule changes. Everyone's buzzing about games being a little bit shorter, having the pitch clock involved. But I feel like the shift and perhaps a little bit of a change in the ball, which Major League Baseball is never going to admit to, but it feels like the ball is flying quite a bit more than it did last year after a lot of people were outraged at the lack of home runs last year. Shock, surprise, surprise there. But what have you made out of the first week of the season? Because I do think that the shift, coupled with, even though, once again, they're not going to want to admit it, the ball being a little bit changed, that has really been the biggest takeaways for me and has allowed for a lot of overs.
There was definitely a day, I think Monday night was ridiculous for overs. I think they went 13-1-1 on the 15-game slate or something crazy like that. It's definitely been a really interesting thing to watch. It's been kind of, the season is pretty even. 57% to the over with a day like that and only a few days played actually illustrates that aside from that one big over blowout day, that we've had pretty good balance between overs and unders. But what's really stood out to me is that the games that have gone over are going over without much doubt. We are seeing a bunch of, 8+ run performances from teams early in the season. And I think that, that can tend to be a little bit of the rule shifting, people getting used to it, pitchers getting used to it. It seems a little unpredictable. Looks like the Mets are giving up a lot of runs to anyone who they face. It's going to be very interesting to see how they do against Miami at home now after a interesting looking Brewers series. But, I think it's still really important to handicap matchups. You can't really go in there blind. But the pitchers who are struggling seem to really be struggling. It's my biggest takeaway.
Yep, I'm looking at you, Patrick Corbin, who's been struggling ever since he got that big payday after he was a hero during the 2019 World Series. And now it's just been a big giant fall off. And how much do you take a look at these aging pitchers and want to fade them? Because I feel like the warning signs were there with Max Scherzer, as you were referencing the New York Mets, because towards the back half of the year after that injury, he didn't look like himself, and he certainly has not been this year. Justin Verlander is going to be coming in off the injured list soon, and that's someone I don't necessarily want to have a lot of faith in. Jacob deGrom looked a little bit better in the game that we saw on Wednesday, but he came out looking like a shell of himself on opening day as well. And I do think that age is catching up with a lot of these pitchers that we all know and love, and thus they're being overvalued.
Yeah, definitely early in the season as they're kind of shaking off some of the rust of spring. These are guys who don't go out there and get fully stretched out because of injury concerns. Some do, obviously, but more often than not, you hear about guys going 4 innings in spring training, and it can lead to a little bit of a rough start across older pitchers. Of course, some guys who come out cold in the beginning of the season dominate, and we've seen that with Garrett Cole, who isn't very old comparatively. But yeah, I think you definitely want to not be afraid to believe what you're seeing is a big deal right now, right? Like if a pitcher comes out there and is just throwing meatballs and is getting clobbered, like a lot of people tend to be like, oh, he'll bounce back. But the likelihood is that like there can be legitimate problems with mechanics. So if I'm seeing guys getting hammered for 3 or 4 runs in the first few innings, I'm probably going to make sure that I'm staying with it on them for at least a little while they get into mid-season form, get their routine down, really figure out some of the differences between, maybe how they're pitching into the no shift, how they're pitching with the pitch clock, how they're dealing with having to make sure that they're on a pace. And I mean, we're not seeing it too much on batters, but it definitely feels like it's impacting pitchers. It, of course, is impacting stolen bases, which puts more men in, scoring position, changes how you pitch, more guys coming out of instead of the windup coming out of the stretch, because you have this pitch clock that speeds up at bats, that leads to worse pitches. It's a very different game for pitchers. And I think that's what the rule changes wanted, right? We had a year where guys hit like 240 across the league. It's not what baseball wants. So, I wouldn't be shocked to see a little extra pop in that ball. I think it's crazy that we go out here and we still bet on a game every day where we don't know the logistics of which of like the 4 baseballs it feels like we've seen in the last 3 years we're going to get. But there is definitely some pop. You see guys hitting some home runs early, some balls leaving the park from some key bats. So I think, keep looking at home run props. Keep looking at guys to get those total bases. The hitting performances should hopefully continue. It's great for the sport. I mean, we've seen a massive uptick in just people watching from the data that's coming in already. So I would not expect it to be shied away from in terms of what the MLB wants from its product.
Yep, we have been noticing that the balls, they have been flying quite a bit more this year. The shift, that is helping out offense. And as we know in darn near every league, it's catering much more to offense rather than defense. In my opinion, the NBA's went a little bit too far to offense, where you're seeing totals of 245 and a half, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But certainly I do think that Major League Baseball trying to create a little bit more of a fan-friendly environment. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Justin Perri. He does great work over at Shot Quality Bets. And Justin, I do think that we've got some interesting games that is going to be going down for Thursday, but as we know, 4 games have already been postponed/canceled due to the weather. And how much do you gauge this? And does it cause you to maybe go in a little bit more on these games that we still have available, or perhaps shy away from a few as well? Just because I do think that it is very interesting to gauge what we are going to be getting, because there are so many games that they are not going to be happening.
I don't bet more on the smaller slates than I do on the bigger slates. It's strictly per opportunity, equal size bets, how I always am. Baseball, I do bet a little smaller than college basketball just because it's a little bit of a different game. The idea is the same standard, 1 unit of the bankroll for my plays, regardless of how busy a slate is. I find that helps you stay a little even keeled when, betting volume. It's one less thing to worry about. Oh, how much am I putting on this? No, I have the same amount. It's do I want to play this or not is the biggest question. I think you're pretty similar in that, Greg. It definitely works. But yeah, I think the rain's obviously difficult. I don't think that you can go in there and be oh, it's going to rain, I'm going to take the under. It doesn't always work like that. I think that you probably still want to just handicap pitchers, probably want to maybe look into how, pitchers are starting to perform. We've seen some pitchers already. We know how a few of these guys have had starts now. So, I think this is a really good time to honestly look into expected data early. That's one of the key benefits, in my opinion, of expected data is the ability to kind of get a real sense of what's going on before the regression to the mean brings it there. I'm definitely diving into expected data matchups, seeing who has high expected slugging percentages, maybe higher than they did last season, who hasn't looked good, who's giving up too many, hard hit line drives. That type of stuff is really more what I'm looking for than trying to key in on something that's rain related. I do think, you can get into weather related stuff, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it. I actually love visual memory index, which is a really cool metric that I use for baseball handicapping that involves weather. But the rain, I feel it's hard to make a case on specifically rainy play leading to various totals or teams.
I'm right there with you, because we do see with 20 different guys, they respond 20 different ways to a rain delay, to adverse weather, what have you. And I think that it's always just such a tricky spot, because I always make the joke of, whenever I see a game that has a rain delay, I just want the exact opposite of what I bet because I always feel like I'm always on the wrong side of it. But I do think that is very interesting to take a look at. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Justin Perri. He does great work over at Shot Quality Bets. And how do you gauge some of these rain delays? Does it ever cause you to be on a team / off a team?
I think maybe the only strategy you could really go and employ, Greg, is looking at bullpen performance in games where rain delays are possible, because if a guy has to sit down for an hour and a half, he's probably not going to come back out. Plus maybe he threw 10 pitches, but if he's gone 50, day's probably over. And I think you can get an extended look at various bullpens, and we've already seen some of the bullpens are really struggling out of the gate. So I think that the rain might be an actual good way to key in on, struggling relief corps rather than maybe trying to figure out too much about the pitcher. I tend to stay with my understanding and expectations of a pitcher in a standard sense and just hope that we don't see the rain or just stay off. But I do think it can be an interesting angle to get prolonged exposure to weaker or maybe stronger bullpens. Again, it's also a really interesting time to sort of key in on what teams need, right? So if you're a team that's drastically been dominating or maybe starting slow, how you use pitchers in a game that maybe has divulged into rain-delayed chaos is very different. So definitely a lot of things to triangulate, but if you have a team who's been struggling out of the gate, gets in a rain delay, they might end up using their best guys to try to sneak away with a win versus a team who's been winning. There's a lot going on, but yeah, either prolonged bullpen exposure or just sticking with your guns or just plainly staying away.
Yep, I do not blame you there on all fronts, and I do think that this should be a game in which we should be able to avoid the weather. We did have a little bit of rain out in the city of Atlanta on Wednesday, but it looks like it's going to be staying away for Thursday. And what I think is the best game of the day, the San Diego Padres, they're going to be hitting the road. They're going to be facing off against the Atlanta Braves with Spencer Strider going for the Braves. Blake Snell is on the bump for the Padres with a total of 7.5. How do you gauge this one? Because I take a look at the Padres, and I always note that they always fit better when they're on the road rather than when they're at home, and it's for obvious reasons because Petco Park is just such a pitcher-friendly ballpark. Meanwhile, with Blake Snell, I liked what I saw from him towards the back half of last year, but I don't know if I'm fully willing to trust him just because he just feels a little bit like Rick the Wild Thing Vaughn. Really good stuff, but no control whatsoever.
This is a tough one, honestly. I mean, the conditions in Atlanta should definitely be pretty favorable for the San Diego team to come in and hit. I think it opened a little bit higher, actually. It might
opened at an 8,
down.
yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's actually coming down. So I think that might be a decent value spot right now on the over. Just both these offenses pretty potent. I know people were actually pretty impressed with some of the strikeout stuff Snell had. Strider obviously looking dominant in his first start. This should be a pretty interesting game. I think this is, a very high potential of a playoff matchup if the San Diego Padres achieve what they want to. And I mean, you can't really talk about the best hitters to start the season without Matt Olson. And this guy is just continuously raking. Braves have been able to put up a fair amount of runs in all of their games. I tend to think that they will probably score here. So yeah, I like the over considering it should have decent conditions, but it's a tough one. I would probably lean plus money. Plus 140 looks like it's some pretty good money here. I think even plus 150 is around at a few bets. I think it's probably a good chance for the Padres coming in with a 500 record here, trying to get a big statement win and get back into being considered good after, some struggles against the Rockies and the Diamondbacks. I don't think you would expect 3-3 from the Padres. I don't think they like that they're 3-3. I'm sure they were hoping to be 5-1 after these first 6. So they need a big win here, and I think this is probably a good place to get it. Snell needs to miss bats, though, if he's going to get this win.
No question about it. And Justin, it is, as we mentioned, a little bit of a later slate on this Thursday. Part of it is due to the fact that we've already got 4 games that are postponed / canceled. But anything else that you're really looking at, whether you're going to be betting on the game or you just want to see a little bit more from the team / pitcher that is going to be going?
I'm definitely going to be looking at the Rockies tomorrow at home. Laying, they're minus 140 or so right now.
That's a cheap price against the Washington Nationals.
Yeah. Josiah Gray is the Sharps' Patrick Corbin. Everyone knows about Corbin now, but Josiah Gray is right there. And going to this environment is not going to be pretty. And we know the Rockies perform pretty well here. And I don't think that's a very steep price at all. I would probably look towards the Rockies getting runs. It's pretty straightforward off of Gray. I think he's one of my guys that I'll just continue to go against until he eventually just isn't allowed to pitch anymore. I don't really see him improving. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, teams like the Nationals are going to put out guys just so they can have like a somewhat serviceable starting rotation. But yeah, the Nats aren't pretty. I think the Rockies probably get a home win here. I think this is their home opener, and they played the Dodgers and the Padres, and they did okay. The Dodgers kind of beat them up bad, but stole a win off of the Padres, which is nice. I think 2 wins off of the Padres. So, I think they have a pretty good home attack here. I don't trust Washington. I think, the price action might be sharp on Washington, but just can't trust them. I would go look at like Colorado to score over their team total, or the team total in the first 5 innings, or Josiah Gray's prop over earned runs allowed, over hits allowed. Should be nice conditions for these Nationals to surrender some hits.
Yep, no question about it. And you mentioned our good friend Josiah Gray. He gave up 38 home runs in 148 and 2/3 innings last season. That is just absolutely terrible. That's 2.3 home runs per 9 innings, kids. And a man that always produces, that'd be you, Justin. You do absolutely tremendous work over at Shot Quality Bets. And as I mentioned at the top, don't let the name deceive you, because I know you do an amazing job taking a look at the MLB. I know that when football season is aboard, you're going to be doing a great job on that front as well. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Definitely excited to be covering baseball. We'll be doing some writing, I think, a little bit deeper into the summer right now over at Shot Quality. We're a little keyed in on NBA, so that'll be fun through the end of the spring here. Very excited. We just launched our Shot Quality NBA model. No plans to move Shot Quality into baseball just yet, but I will definitely still be talking about it, posting about it, tweeting about it, betting on it, joining great shows like this. So if you're looking for the basketball, Shot Quality is great, and we'll definitely be talking some, dirty diamond stuff here, which is great. I mean, look, I love baseball. I'm so excited for this season. I'm really excited to start digging into some of these projected numbers as teams continue to show us who they are early in the season. So lots of volume early, and then probably picking my spots later in the year. But this is definitely a spot I will see you back in soon, hopefully, Greg.
Absolutely. Justin does an amazing job taking a look at baseball. He did incredible work on my college basketball podcast. And for those of you guys that listened to the baseball podcast last year, you were able to get some winners from Justin, and I plan on that being the case once again this year. Justin won the best in the business. Always appreciate him joining me on this podcast. So big thanks to Justin for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Thursday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to Justin Perri over at Shot Quality Bets for joining me in the last segment. Though he is over there at Shot Quality Bets, you may recall he joined me a lot on this podcast last year. He is an ace when it comes to gauging all of Major League Baseball. It is always a pleasure to be able to get him aboard, and I look forward to our chats all throughout the year, as it's one of the best that you're going to find at being able to handicap this great game. So big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the MLB board for this Thursday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at GNR_D1. Unfortunately, as I record this, we've already got 4 rainouts. Hopefully we don't get any more, but inclement weather is hitting a lot of the country, so please do stay safe out there if you're experiencing some not so terrific weather. So that's a little bit of a bummer. As a result, I have got, as of right now, 6 games to handicap, and hopefully we get all 6 of them. But going to be going in rotation order from National League first, then the American League games, and then our lone interleague game involving the Giants and the White Sox. That's going to be at the bottom. 901, 902, 903, 904 are going to be skips. The Miami Marlins and New York Mets and Cincinnati Reds and Philadelphia Phillies games, those have been postponed. That's a bummer, but we do move on to 905, 906 on the betting board. It is the Washington Nationals, and they are going to be hitting the road face-off against the Colorado Rockies, as Kyle Freeland is going to be going for the Rocks, and Josiah Gray is on the bump for the Washington Nationals. And the Nationals, they find themselves anywhere between plus 110 and plus 122, anywhere between minus 130 and minus 140 is your number on Colorado, with 10.5 to 11 being your total on the 11 unders minus 120 and the overs even on the 10.5, finding the over at a minus 115 and the under that is at minus 105. And in this spot, I did set the Rockies as a minus 154 favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay it. Josiah Gray, in terms of home runs per 9 innings among qualifying pitchers last year, number 1 in the National League last year. That's not so terrific. Now, I do recognize that you've got a lot of demonstrative home and road splits with the Colorado Rockies, and Kyle Freeland just was not able to get the job done at home, but we've seen in the past that he's been able to do a nice job at home. 6 ERA at home compared to a 3.08 on the road in 2022. I still go back to 2018 when he was like absolutely dynamite when he was at home, so I do think that he's going to be able to pick it up a little bit, and even with him having that ERA, I still think that he's going to be able to do a better job than Josiah Gray in this circumstance. As Gray, you take a look at him last year, he gave up well north of 2 home runs per 9 innings, 38 bombs and 148 and 2/3 innings. He was interestingly better on the road, 4.11 road ERA compared to a 6.12 ERA at home, but still gave up 19 bombs at 81 innings, and now he needs to go to elevation. And we always find it with the Colorado Rockies. They typically are like dead last in offense when they're on the road in terms of runs per game, and they're number 1 at home in terms of runs per game. Like CJ Cron last year had 29 home runs. He had 22 of them come at home. You're typically going to find big home and road splits with someone like a Charlie Blackmon. You've got a lot of good guys in this fold for the Colorado Rockies. They finally have Chris Bryant healthy, so that is big. They pick up Jurickson Profar, so they have been looking away from Grichuk here in recent days, but we shall see if the Rockies are able to maintain that, and I certainly do think that they should, as they're going up against a Nationals team that this team has just been getting completely toasted all season long. Joey Meneses is someone that I like. He had a 300 and was getting a home run every about 14 or so at bats last season. You've got someone in Victor Robles that's able to move the line. And Keeper Ruiz, I do think, is a nice up-and-coming prospect, but they're just not fielding a competitive Major League Baseball team right now. The bullpen isn't terrible. Erasmo Ramirez, a sub-3.5 ERA, along with Mason Thompson, Carl Edwards Jr. last season, but Josiah Gray, I don't think is going to be doing this team any favors for the Colorado Rockies. They are without Daniel Bard right now, but they pick up Brad Hand, who's not terrific, but it's an upgrade for this bullpen. Pierce Johnson, once again, not amazing, but an upgrade for this bullpen. Ty Block is not necessarily someone that you want to trust him, but I am much more willing to have faith in Kyle Freeland doing an okay job. He, at the very least, is able to limit the hard contact. Not much of a hard tosser, but going up against the Washington Nationals team that I don't have a lot of faith in. I do think that the Rockies are going to be able to crank up their offense. We saw them look relatively solid in their West Coast road trip. I think that carries over here. Semi-total 11.2. I think that Josiah Gray is going to be giving up a lot of hard contact. And then in terms of the money line, I did set the Rockies at a minus 154, but I'm seeing their run line right now at the Westgate at a plus 145. Personally, I was willing to take anything of a plus 115 because I do think that this is going to be a higher scoring game. I'm actually willing to trust the run line in this spot. Take that Mondo plus price with the Colorado Rockies to go along with a 10.5/11 over, as I said, my total at an 11.2. Now we have my DK Nation pick. This is 907, 908 on the betting board. The Atlanta Braves are going to be playing against the San Diego Padres, as Blake Snell is going to be going for the Pods and Spencer Strider is on the bump for Atlanta. 7.5 is the total. Over and under are both at minus 105 to minus 115. Atlanta is between a minus 160 to a minus 165 favorite. Between plus 140 and plus 148 is your number on the Padres. Set the Braves as a minus 156 favorite. If you're looking at their run line, you're finding it at a plus 130. I would need more like a plus 135 to be able to take a shot here. So I'm sort of in wait-and-see mode. This opened up more around a minus 150, which I was willing to lay with the Atlanta Braves. So the opener was a buy point for me on the Atlanta Braves. At current numbers, I'd be trying to see if the Padres get up to more like a plus 155 or so. Meanwhile, with the Atlanta Braves, would like to see this get back down to a minus 155, and I do think that we are going to be able to get there. But my DK Nation right up here, that is going to be on this total over. I do think that Blake Snell is going to have struggles once again on the road, and he's just shown that throughout his time with the San Diego Padres. He has made 22 road appearances as a San Diego Padre during the regular season and one in the postseason. In the regular season, 16 of them ended after 5 innings or fewer, and in the postseason appearance, I believe that he went 3 1/3 innings against the New York Mets. So he has not necessarily been able to lend a lot of length, and a lot of this is due to command. Since joining the San Diego Padres, 4.2 walks per 9 innings did not look sharp on opening day. He had 9 punch-outs in 4 1/3 innings, but also gave up 6 hits as well. Now, Spencer Strider has been a remarkable north of 13 strikeouts per 9 innings, right around a 2.57 career ERA. He does get a little bit loose with the walks, though. He gave up 3 walks in the first start that he had of the season against the Washington Nationals, so that is a little bit of a worry. And this is an Atlanta Braves team that I know that Kenley Jansen is not necessarily the world's most trustworthy guy, but they do lose someone that was able to give the team 41 saves last year. Tyler Madsen is still on the injured list. Certainly a much more trustworthy bullpen, though, than the San Diego Padres. They start out the year with a 5.95 ERA, and for the Padres last year, they were 14th of the league in terms of bullpen ERA. Josh Hader, he has found himself once again. He once again looks very rock solid, and past that, it's been really a horse apiece situation. They lose Pierce Johnson. Nabel Chrisman is someone I like, but he's a little bit more of a long guy. Tim Hill, he can be a little bit hot and cold for this team. Domingo Tapia, he's not necessarily so terrific. And for the Atlanta Braves, you do have aging guys like Jesse Chavez that are in that bullpen, but we also have with the Atlanta Braves, the team that led the National League in home runs last year, and you've already got 3 bombs out of Matt Olson, who looked very good in spring training. Ronald Acuna Jr., he looks much more like himself than he did coming off of that injury last year. Austin Riley is one of the best mashers in the big leagues as well. You're able to go down the list, and this team is absolutely remarkable with that lineup. And then the Padres lineup is relatively rock solid as well. I mentioned some of their home and road splits. When the Padres were at home last year, they were averaging right around 3.7 runs per game. On the road, they were second best in the National League in terms of runs per game. They're still without Fernando Tatis Jr., but that's nothing new. They were without him all year last year. Xander Bogaerts has produced already 3 home runs, 409 average throughout the first 6 games of the season. Certainly not sustainable, but you finally had Juan Soto be able to bust through in the last few games of the team's previous series, as he was able to get a home run in that set. So that's something that you do like to see. You got to figure that you're going to be able to get a little bit more out of Manny Machado moving forward, as he had to be able to hit a home run, but typically he's a little bit of a slow starter, and then once he gets going, that's absolutely big. I do think that Matt Carpenter is going to be able to refine a little bit of that form that he had with the New York Yankees last season. Hasn't necessarily for average, but has been able to reach base quite a bit recently. And for the Atlanta Braves, you do have a solid bullpen with guys like a Dylan Lee and company, but I still do think that the Padres get theirs, and with Blake Snell being a bit all over the place in terms of his command, I do think that the Braves are going to be able to take it to the Padres, which is why I did set the Braves at a minus 156. Here at minus 160, it would be a little bit more of a hold off, and if you just continue to have this thing continue to spike at north of plus 155, that would be my buy point on the Padres, but I personally like the opener of the Atlanta Braves more around a minus 150, so we'll wait and see, as I am seeing right now a minus 156 out there on the Braves. That'd be my max buy point there, but DK Nation write-up, that is going to be on this total over 909, 910 on the betting board. It is the LA Dodgers on the road facing off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Merrill Kelly is going to be going for the Snakes, and Dustin May is going to be on the bump for the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are favorites of anywhere between minus 145 and minus 155. Meanwhile, between plus 130 and plus 140 is your number on Arizona. 8.5 is the total. Overs between minus 110 and minus 120. The under is anywhere between even and minus 110. And with the Diamondbacks, I do need at least a plus 150 to take a shot here. I set the Dodgers at a minus 149, so minus 150 is pretty much my cutoff point there. I would need at least a plus 118 to take a shot on them on the run line. Typically, I do like to play a lot of Dodgers run lines, but I do think that because this is going to be a game against Merrill Kelly, where Merrill Kelly's at home, I am a little bit more tedious in this spot, so that is why I'm going to be willing to lay a little bit more of a chalky money line rather than taking a look at a run line, because you take a look at Merrill Kelly just throughout his career, and he's always been much better when he has been at home rather than on the road. Now, the Dodgers just completely owned his soul last year. He had an 8.10 ERA when going up against the LA Dodgers, and I mean, this year he was able to hold the Dodgers scoreless, but only went 3 2/3 innings, so a very small sample size. But I find it so fascinating to take a look at Merrill Kelly and just sort of the home and road splits that he has been having throughout his career. They weren't necessarily prevalent last year, but a 3.35 home ERA, a 4.55 ERA on the road. He just loses command when he's on the road. His walks per 9 rate jumps up by about 35 or so percent, so that is something that you do want to be watching out for. Meanwhile, for Dustin May, I do think that he's going to be able to give a solid performance. Came out first start of the year. He went 7 scoreless innings, giving up 1 walk. His strikeout numbers weren't necessarily terrific, but we know that this guy has absolutely amazing stuff. And for the LA Dodgers, this is a team with an incredible bullpen of guys that you probably haven't heard too much about. Evan Phillips, Alex Vesia, Yancy Almonte, Caleb Ferguson. They all had sub 3.4 ERAs last season. This is a really good no-name bullpen, and for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they did pick up a few guys like Andrew Chafin, Miguel Castro to be able to help things out a little bit, and I do like what you're able to get out of Joe Mantiply when he's available, but he is not available for this game, so that's a little bit to their detriment. Got an Arizona Diamondbacks lineup that is kicking the tires on some older guys like an Evan Longoria. They pick up Lourdes Gurriel, certainly not as much of an older guy. I do think that he's going to be helping move the line for this team, but they did lose Darton Varsho in the offseason as well. That hurts in terms of defense, and that hurts because he was able to be a steady Eddie bat. You've got Ketel Marte of the Marte Party, but this Diamondbacks team, they were in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of home runs per game at home last season. You really didn't have a lot of power outside of Christian Walker at 35 home runs last season. Has been able to get on base quite consistently throughout the year this year, but guys like Nick Ahmed at the bottom of the fold, I have my trepidations there for the LA Dodgers. They did lose Gavin Lux prior to the season. That did hurt them. You're going to be without Justin Turner as he's now with the Boston Red Sox, but yet this team still continues to hit. You still have Mookie Betts. He's able to pound 30-plus home runs. He's able to do a great job getting on base. J.D. Martinez has seen a little bit of a dip in power recently, but you've got Trace Thompson and Will Smith, who already have a combined 6 home runs between the two of them. Freddie Freeman does a good job of moving the line. He does a good job with his power as well. And I really like this young kid in center field in James Outman. He's already hit a home run this year. Does a good job with his speed. He's able to get on base. I do think that the Dodgers just have the Arizona Diamondbacks a little bit outgunned. Merrill Kelly has always had his struggles when going up against the LA Dodgers, and I do think that these are going to continue. I do think that Kelly is going to be a little bit better in this spot because it is a home start for him, so I'm going to be willing to lay a little bit more of a chalky money line with the Dodgers. I'm willing to lay up to a minus 148 with them, and in terms of total, I did set it at an 8.1. I do think that Dustin May goes out there, gives you a relatively solid start. I do think that Kelly going to fare a little bit better than he typically does against the Dodgers just because this is a home start for him. As we move on to game number 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board, Boston Red Sox are in the road face-off against the Detroit Tigers. Spencer Turnbull is going to be going for the Tigres, and Chris Sale is going to be on the bump for the Boston Red Sox. Red Sox between minus 145 and minus 155 favorites, and between plus 125 and plus 135 your number on the Tigers, with your total anywhere between 8 and 8.5. On the 8.5 unders minus 120, and the over is even on the 8 over and under anywhere between minus 105 and minus 115. And for the Boston Red Sox, I've been burnt by them a little bit this year, but I'm going to be willing to trust them again. Minus 162 is the number that I made on this game for the Boston Red Sox. Last 2 games, the offense was a little bit dry for this team, but by and large, they've been able to do a nice job of being able to produce some runs, and I do think that they're going to have a little bit of a bounce back. You can tell that they were affected a little bit by inclement weather out on the northeast part of the country yesterday, but we had a pretty impressive lineup for this Boston Red Sox team as Rafael Devers. He's been able to do a nice job moving the line, hitting nearly a 300. Last year was able to do a nice job with combining power and just overall on base. Alex Verdugo hit just below 300 last year. I like their offseason acquisition in Masakata Yoshida, and then on top of that, Adam Duvall, someone who's been in a bit of a rut in recent years, but had some great moments while he's with the Cincinnati Reds. Feels like he's having a career renaissance. They bring in Justin Turner as well. He's been able to do a nice job of putting bat to ball, and they go up against the Detroit Tigers lineup that you really don't have a like for that. Spencer Torkelson was able to have a home run against the Houston Astros in that series, but I've got massive question marks with the entirety of this lineup. They pick up Matt Vierling, which I think that he's going to be okay for this team. I do think that someone like a Nick Maton coming over from the Philadelphia Phillies is going to be able to help them out. And Riley Green is someone that's able to move the line for this team. But other than Green and Vierling, you really don't have a lot of guys that hit for average. You really don't have a lot of guys that hit for power. And the big thing with this Tigers team is that last year they actually had a relatively good bullpen. They had guys like a Michael Fulmer. You had Gregory Soto. You had Joey Jimenez, guys that were able to do a nice job holding down the fort. Now you're down to Alex Lang, who last year he had an okay ERA, but he was nothing special for this team. You're going to be looking to the guys that were really flameouts for this team all throughout the year last year, like a Jason Foley is someone that they're going to be relying very heavily on. Now, with the Boston Red Sox, not a great bullpen for them. I recognize that Kenley Jansen had 41 saves last year, but anyone that has bet a game that involves Kenley Jansen closing it out knows what sort of sweats you get there. Chris Martin was relatively solid with the Dodgers last year, but Richard Blyer, Ryan Brazier, Caleb Ort, these are not necessarily guys that you want to be relying upon. And for Spencer Turnbull, he made his first start since 2021 a few days ago and got rocked by the Rays, giving up 7 runs while getting 7 outs, walked 3, did not look sharp at all, has never really been a high strikeout guy, has been a guy that really just tries to limit our contact. But keep in mind, with the Detroit Tigers, they now have new ballpark dimensions as well, which I do think is going to be playing to the detriment to them. I did set my total at 8.2. I'm mostly seeing 8s with relatively okay juice. I'm going to be looking at an 8 over in this spot. I do think that the Boston Red Sox are going to be able to take advantage of Turnbull and this bad bullpen. And for the Red Sox, set them as a minus 162 on the money line. I was willing to lay a small price on the run line, finding that anywhere between plus 110 and plus 115. Feels like this is going to be a Red Sox bunch that's going to be giving up a lot of runs, but they're going to be scoring a lot of runs, which should result in a lot of multi-run wins. So I'm going to take that plus price of the Red Sox run line to go along with this total over. 913, 914 on the betting board. It is the Toronto Blue Jays. They hit the road face-off against the Kansas City Royals. Jordan Lyles is going to be going for the Royals, and Kevin Gausman is on the bump for Toronto. And Toronto is a favorite of anywhere between minus 185 and minus $2, and between plus 152 and plus 170 is your number with the Royals. 8.5 is the total. The over is anywhere between minus 110 and minus 120. The under is anywhere between even and minus 110. And with the Toronto Blue Jays, I did set them at minus 207 on the money line. If you take a look at the run line, you're going to be laying about minus 115 to a minus 120. I was willing to go up to a minus 130, so I'm going to be willing to trust in Kevin Gausman. Last year, he led all American League starting pitchers in terms of fielding independent. Just got really the short end of the stick last season, and in his first start, he took the loss despite the fact that he didn't give up a single earned run. There were a few unearned runs that he gave up. He was hurt very much by the fielding in that game. He once again looked relatively solid, but I did think that things should be going upward, going up against a Royals team that they've got Salvador Perez back in the fold, and when he was fully healthy 2 years ago, he hit about a 275 with 48 home runs, and you've got upside guys, someone like a Vinny Pasquantino, Kyle Isabel, Mike Massey, Nate Eaton, Bobby Witt Jr. These are guys that they are able to move the line, but they just haven't been able to show that might. Going into yesterday, they were hitting a $170 as a collective to begin the season, and for the Kansas City Royals, they do add Aroldis Chapman to the bullpen. Scott Barlow is someone with a sub-3 ERA, and Jose Cuas is someone that's relatively okay, but this is still one of the lesser bullpens in the big leagues, and I actually do like this Toronto Blue Jays bullpen as well. Jordan Romano is a sneaky good reliever that's able to close out games. Adam Simber, Yimi Garcia, they've been able to do their part as well. Not really one for Zach Pop, but Tim Meza, he's able to do a relatively rock-solid job as well. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, going into yesterday, they really hadn't hit the deep ball too much. As a matter of fact, just 2 home runs, you know that's going to be going upward, and they are still doing a nice job of being able to move the line. Bo Bichette, Matt Chapman had a combined 20 hits in 5 games going into yesterday. Vlad Guerrero Jr., you know that he's going to hit. He consistently hits right around 300 with 30-plus home runs. George Springer, he's able to do an incredible job for this team, and I do think that you are going to be able to have this Blue Jays team really be able to take it to Jordan Lyles, who, when he was at Baltimore last year, did a good job of limiting our contact at home. When he was away from home, he was giving up bombs upon bombs. He was very much a beneficiary of those new ballpark dimensions in Baltimore last year. 3.47 home ERA when pitching in Baltimore with 6 home runs given up in 83 innings. He gave up 20 home runs in 96 innings away from home with a 5.25 ERA. Now, Kansas City is not the worst ballpark in the world for a pitcher, but it's by far not the best ballpark in the world. I put it somewhere in the middle. I do think that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be able to take it to him in this spot, but I do think that Kevin Gausman going to do a nice job of jamming up these Royals hitters, which is why I did set my total at 8.3. I think that Gausman is able to do enough to be able to keep this total under, but I do think that the Blue Jays, they have themselves a field day against Jordan Lyles and this bullpen. I did set the Blue Jays as a minus 130, laying a run and a half on the run line, so going to be willing to lay the minus 115 to minus 120 run line of Toronto and taking a look at the 8.5 under, and we wrap things up with 919, 920 as 915, 916, 917, 918. Those are skips. Those were supposed to be Astros and Twins and Yankees and Orioles. Those were postponed games, so we go down to the bottom with this interleague game with the Giants having Alex Wood going to the mound against the homestanding Chicago White Sox, who tried out their Lance Lynn. With the White Sox are between minus 130 to minus 135 favorites, seeing straight 128 out there as well, and we're between plus 115 and plus 120. Your number on the Giants, it is your total. Over is anywhere between minus 105, minus 120. The under is anywhere between even and minus 115. And with the Giants, I did set them as a plus 172 underdog. I just do not have any faith here whatsoever in Alex Wood. And For Lance Lynn, first 2 months of the season, he had north of a 6 ERA. After that, he had a sub-3 ERA. I do think that we're going to see good Lance Lynn once again. He might be still a little bit out of sorts, but for the San Francisco Giants, they just haven't been the same team since they went away from Buster Posey, since Buster Posey decided that he was going to retire. They do a good job with their platooning to be able to get some home runs, as you've been able to get a pair of home runs already out of Jock Peterson and David Villar. They do a good job of being able to mix and match, but they have to do this day in and day out. You really don't have that one guy where you're like, yep, he's able to move the line other than Thairo Estrada, as you got VR hitting about a 235, and I think that Thairo Estrada is the only player on the roster right now that's hitting above a 235. That is a big, giant issue for this team. They've been dealing with Brandon Crawford not looking like himself recently, so that's an issue. They no longer have Brandon Belt, as he went away during the postseason. J.D. Davis has been not necessarily himself since getting to San Francisco, and this is not a bullpen that impresses me. One by Camilo Doval at a sub-3 ERA. You've got Rogers squared, and neither of these guys are hard tossers at all. Scott Alexander, when he's been out there on the field, he's provided a sub-3 ERA, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy pretty much the last 3 years. And for the White Sox, they are trying to mix and match with their bullpen. They're without Liam Hendricks right now. Kendall Graveman has been a little bit hot and cold since coming over to the White Sox, but Aaron Bummer, Reynaldo Lopez, Jimmy Lambert all had sub-3.5 ERAs last season. And for the White Sox, they may not have that one guy that's going to go out there and have 30-plus home runs this year, but they've got a lot of guys that they consistently get on base. Andrew Benintendi, Tim Anderson, both at above a 290 last year. Elvis Andrus off to a rough start to the year, but towards the back half of the season, getting away from Oakland was good for him. Luis Robert, he's able to provide some power. He's hitting north of a 300 to begin the season. I like the way that Andrew Vaughn has been looking at the plate as well. Yes, Monty Grandal does a good job of being able to find a way to be able to get on base. Not a great average, but a good on base for him. And I do think that they're going to be taking it to a guy in Alex Wood that he just couldn't find it all year long. He had a fielding independent that indicated that he was getting a little bit unlucky, and I don't disagree. He was giving up about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings overall last year, but he was atrocious on the road. 5.51 ERA. Home runs per 9 rate when he was away from home was right around 1.6. His strikeouts per 9 rate, I mean, it was 131 strikeouts, 130 and 2/3 innings, so not too bad there. Doesn't walk a ton of guys, but he just doesn't have the same stuff that he used to have a few years ago, and he just has not been able to pitch well away from San Francisco in recent years. So I do think that Lance Lynn going to go out there, get the job done for the White Sox. Did somebody told it at 8.1. I do think that the White Sox do a nice job of playing some small ball against Alex Wood. I do think that they're going to be able to get a nice blast or two, and I do think that the Giants are going to do enough to be able to find a solo home run or two. That's just the way that Gabe Kapler is able to do a nice job with his platooning. So going to be taking a look at the 8 over, and with the White Sox willing to lay the number, I set them as a matter of fact more around a -170 on the money line, and that will wrap things up for the Thursday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to Justin Perri over at Chalk Quality Bets for joining me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at JNet_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. As per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means I'm coming at you guys once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.